We all know that the news recently broke about Maxie leaving Port Charles, but an unconfirmed piece of insider buzz suggests this is not just a simple, routine cast rotation. The word on the street is that she is not leaving alone. Spinelli, Georgie, and Bailey are packing their bags and heading to Australia with her. Four beloved characters, an entire family unit, completely vanishing from the canvas at the exact same time. If you ask me, there may be more going on here than a simple storyline pivot. It feels like a massive secret is being hastily swept under the rug before we even have the chance to process it on screen. I keep wondering whether this sudden mass exodus was always the master plan or a last-minute scramble behind the scenes. Kirsten Storms has officially exited the canvas, leaving Maxie's future completely shrouded in mystery. Meanwhile, Bradford Anderson has not confirmed any permanent departure, yet his character is being shipped off across the globe alongside his family. When four characters are written out simultaneously with zero concrete promises of a return date, it sends a very specific, alarming message. A behind-the-scenes possibility is floating around that this Australian relocation is not just a temporary vacation to give the actors a break. Something about this feels hidden, like a deliberate agenda to completely wipe a specific family tree off the map for the foreseeable future. Let us just think about the sheer magnitude of this leak for a moment. We are not talking about one character going to a spa or visiting a sick relative off screen for a few weeks. We are talking about the complete uprooting of Maxie, Spinelli, Georgie, and Bailey. Maxie is Legacy, the daughter of Frisco and Felicia. Spinelli is deeply tied to Jason Morgan and the tech world of Port Charles. The suddenness of it all is what is fueling this intense speculation. Why Australia? Why now? Especially when Maxie just made a massive power play with Michael Corinthos regarding her deception shares. The timing is incredibly suspicious, and the lack of a promised return date is the smoking gun that has everyone whispering in the dark. Everyone assumes that this is just a standard soap opera hiatus. Most viewers believe that the writers are simply giving the characters a happy little breakdown under while contract negotiations or budget shifts take place behind closed doors. The obvious explanation seems to be that Maxie and Spinelli are finally getting their well-deserved happily ever after, far away from the mob violence, the deception corporate warfare, and the endless, exhausting drama of Port Charles. People are taking this at face value, thinking it is a gentle, temporary pause for a family that has been through the absolute ringer over the past decade. Most of the audience is comforting themselves with the idea that Australia is just a sunny placeholder. They assume we will occasionally hear about Maxie's fabulous new life, maybe a name drop here and there by Felicia, Mac, or Lucy Coe. The general consensus is that they will live peacefully off screen, completely safe and sound, until the day the network decides to bring them back. It is a comforting thought, right? A nice, neat little bow on a beloved family storyline. But what if we are looking at this the wrong way entirely? What if that assumed safety is actually a smokescreen for something far more sinister? What if that wasn't the real reason for this sudden departure? What if someone planned this massive exit to serve a much darker narrative purpose? There is a rumor gaining traction that this Australian relocation is actually a setup for a permanent, tragic exit. If you think about it, the writers have backed themselves into a corner. Maxie's ties to Port Charles are deeply rooted. She would never just abandon her life, her mother Felicia, and her career at deception unless she was forced to, or unless the writers are preparing to sever those ties permanently. Let us talk about the devastating collateral damage of this alternative story, James West. This poor boy has already endured an unimaginable amount of trauma for a child. He just went through the devastating heartbreak of learning that the man he thought was his resurrected father, Nathan West, was actually his criminal uncle, Cassius Faison. And then he had to process Cassius's supposed death. James is already grieving, panicking, and incredibly vulnerable. Now, His mother, his father figure Spinelli, and his two sisters are leaving him behind in Port Charles with his grandmother Felicia. Why would Maxie leave James behind? That detail alone suggests that this storyline is being manipulated to isolate James for a specific tragic reason. The insider buzz suggests that the writers are intentionally isolating James to build a massive, heartbreaking storyline around him and Felicia. By moving Maxie, Spinelli, Georgie, and Bailey to the other side of the world, they are physically removing James's safety net. It creates a scenario where James is completely dependent on Felicia and Cody Bell. This alternative story completely shifts the narrative from a happy family vacation to a calculated, strategic isolation of a traumatized child. It makes you wonder what kind of emotional torture the writers are preparing to unleash on this poor kid who has already lost so much. Because we are dealing with unconfirmed information, we have to look at the different ways this could play out. That is one possibility, but another theory is that this is a classic recast holding pattern. In this first scenario, Maxie and Spinelli go to Australia, and the writers use this geographical distance to let the audience cool off. Then, in 6 months or a year, they return to Port Charles, but played by entirely different actors. It is a common daytime television tactic. Send them far away, let the dust settle, and bring them back with new faces. It would explain the suddenness of the exit without permanently destroying the family legacy. But what if the recast never happens? That brings us to the second possibility, the permanent off-screen happily ever after. In this scenario, Bradford Anderson quietly exits the show without a massive announcement, and the family simply stays in Australia forever. They become legacy characters who are only spoken of in passing. Felicia might mention getting a postcard, or James might talk about a phone call with his sisters, but we never actually see them again. It is a quiet, peaceful retirement for the characters. It is safe, it is boring, but it keeps the family alive in the universe of the show without requiring the actors to be on set. Then there is the third possibility, which involves a massive off-screen criminal conspiracy. We all know Spinelli has a history of getting involved with dangerous people due to his unparalleled cyber skills. What if their move to Australia wasn't a choice, but a desperate flight for survival? In this scenario, Spinelli uncovers something he shouldn't have, perhaps related to the Pikeman Group, Ross Cullum's remaining WSB loyalists, or even Jack Brennan's missing black box. The family doesn't move to Australia for a vacation, they go into deep hiding. They sever all contact with Port Charles to protect Felicia and James from being targeted by international assassins. This would explain why James is left behind. He is safer in Port Charles, completely disconnected from Spinelli's dangerous digital footprint. Each of these three scenarios completely changes how we view this sudden departure. The recast theory gives us hope for a return. The quiet retirement theory gives us closure. The international conspiracy theory gives us high-stakes drama and adrenaline. Whenever a show writes off 4 major characters at once, the behind-the-scenes possibility engine goes into absolute overdrive. You have to ask yourself which of these options the current writing regime is most likely to choose. But honestly, none of these theories compare to the most haunting rumor that has been making its way through the grapevine. Guys, we need to talk about the most dangerous possibility. This is the theory that is going to keep you up at night. The one that makes your stomach drop. What if the writers are not planning a recast, a quiet retirement, or a spy thriller? What if they are planning a total, permanent, and devastating wipeout of the Jones-Spinelli family? The darkest rumor currently circulating is that the network is going to close the book on Maxie, Spinelli, Georgie, and Bailey with an unspeakable tragedy. A massive, catastrophic house fire in Australia. Just imagine the sheer horror of this scenario playing out on our screens. Weeks or months go by with James missing his mother and siblings, adjusting to life with Felicia. Then, the phone rings at the Scorpio Jones house in the middle of the night. It is the international authorities calling Mac and Felicia. A massive, uncontrollable blaze has swept through the residence where Maxie, Spinelli, Georgie, and Bailey were sleeping. There are no survivors. All 4 of them gone in a single terrifying instant. It would be a tragedy of epic proportions, a storyline so dark and devastating that it would permanently alter the emotional fabric of Port Charles. It does not need to be the most logical explanation, but it is undeniably the most haunting. If you ask me, this would be one of the most shocking and controversial moves in the history of the show. To kill off a legacy character like Maxie, along with a fan favorite like Spinelli and two innocent children, would send absolute shockwaves through the entire viewing audience. And the emotional fallout would be entirely heavily centered on James West. This poor boy, who has already lost the man he thought was his father, would now be told that his mother, his stepfather, and his two little sisters burned to death on the other side of the world. He would be left completely orphaned, with only Felicia, Mac, and perhaps Cody Bell to pick up the shattered, burning pieces of his life. Why would the writers do this? If Kirsten Storms and Bradford Anderson are both permanently out, a tragic accident is the fastest, most absolute way to explain why they will never, ever return. It permanently closes the door on contract negotiations, recasts, and lingering audience questions. It provides months of heavy, Emmy-worthy grieving material for Felicia, Mac, Cody Bell, Lucy Coe, and the rest of Port Charles. It is a brutal, ruthless narrative choice, but in the world of daytime drama, tragedy is the ultimate currency. The idea that this entire family could be wiped out by a single spark in a foreign country is a rumor that is incredibly hard to shake once you hear it. But here is the thing about insider buzz and unconfirmed information. It is fluid. It changes by the minute. Could this horrific fire in Australia actually happen? Yes, it is entirely possible if the network wants a clean break and a massive rating sweep for November sweeps. Could it be completely wrong? Absolutely. Maybe they really are just enjoying the sunshine, the beaches, and the kangaroos, waiting patiently for the day the actors decide to return home to the studio. I keep wondering whether the writers have even finalized their decision yet, or if they are just flying by the seat of their pants. Maybe they sent them to Australia precisely to buy themselves time to figure out which of these dramatic paths to take. We might get a recast next year. We might get a quiet happily ever after that fades into obscurity. Or we might get the most devastating phone call in Port Charles history. I cannot confirm anything right now, and I certainly hope that beautiful family does not meet such a dark end. But one thing is absolutely certain. With 4 major characters suddenly vanishing across the globe, there is definitely something else going on behind the scenes that we haven't been told yet. Keep your eyes peeled, because this story is far from over.
Goodbye. Please like, subscribe, and comment on the GH Spoilers Daily channel.